How you doing, guys? I'm Trent Henderson. You're tuning into the infamous Living Room Network. Divine powers are always working for us because we're trying to do right. After this video, folks, you're going to make sure you want to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. As you can see, I have over 700 videos in my playlist right now that will help you double your brain power. So what I'm about to tell you is how I double my brain power on my spiritual journey. I'm gonna tell you how I did it, because I didn't always be like super duper intelligent, super duper smart. So anyway, the first thing that I did to double my brain power, I first learned about how my brain works. So what I did was I read all the books you can read about the brain, and I learned all the different compartments of the brain: the occipital lobe, the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, and stuff like that. You know, I was just studying everything about the brain that I could. And I would go into libraries, into the section where they talked about the mind and the philosophies of the mind and stuff, and I would just sit in there and I just read stuff about the mind, you know, after school. Whenever I had free time, like I would just drive my car to the library and just get books about the brain, because I started to think, you know what, if I want to change my life, I want to make myself better, you know, I want to be abundant, where does it start at? Oh, it definitely starts in our thoughts. It starts in your thoughts. So if you want to change anything, you have to make sure that you change your thought world first. See, a lot of people think they can just go out here and just do whatever they want to do, make things happen, all this and that, but they don't have the brain. They don't have the right brain. I mean, everybody has a brain, but they have not rewired their brain to help them think in the direction that they want to go. So that was the first thing that I did. So I learned that's my phone going off. So I learned that, you know, there's the left hemisphere of the brain and there's the right hemisphere of the brain, right? When I learned that really kind of like sparked something in me, you know, because I started to realize, okay, so the left hemisphere is responsible for like logic and reasoning, like math and numbers and saying the word the proper way and stuff like that. It's just responsible for like really meticulous stuff. And then I realized that the right hemisphere brain, which is what I am good at, creativity, inspiration, spirituality, intuition, you know, and so I'm like, why did the universe, like, you know, create people like that? Like, why is there two separate parts of the brain? Okay, listen to what I'm telling y'all. This is gonna blow y'all mind, and it's gonna help you at the same time and help you double your brain power. So once I tried to get down into the study of why the right brain thinks this way and the left brain thinks this way, I started to think to myself, like, what does this have to do with anything in my reality? How is this constructing my very own life? And so I just sat back and I just thought about that for like, you know, maybe a week or two. And I'm just like, you know, okay, my right hemisphere is my strengths, because I'm a very extroverted, a creative person. Y'all know I'm a creative person and all this and that. I'm very, very like psychic, intuitive. And so I sucked at the left side. I sucked on my left hemisphere. Like, you know, I was never good at math. I was never good at like figuring out problems and stuff like that. I didn't understand why people did the things they did, because I wasn't just not good in my left hemisphere. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna edit this video. This video is straight raw, uncut. Phone just blowing up over there. So yeah, that's what the phone normally do when I'm making videos. I just be having it on silent. And so I said to myself, how do these two work together? How do these two parts of the brain work together? And so when I had to learn how that works, I came across something called whole brain thinking. And I'm just like, whole brain thinking? So all this stuff existed the whole time and I didn't know? Like, okay, whole brain thinking. And so I studied whole brain thinking. That's something that you can go study too, folks, if you want to double your brain power. And so what that did was that allowed me to understand how these two work together, you know. And I began to realize that you have to use both parts of your brain in order to get your life together. Like you have to look at things in a spiritual way, and you have to look at things in like a worldly, realistic way. See what I'm saying? Most people, they got one and don't got the other. So I was the type of guy that I said, you know what, since I'm gonna make my mind better and I want to double my brain power, like I gotta make sure I know how these things work together. So what I did after I read so much knowledge on how the mind works and stuff like that, I began to study my reality. This is something you can do. I began to study my reality, meaning like I was the crime scene investigator of my reality. You know what I mean? Like I was the FBI, the forensic analysis guy of my reality. Like I was studying the way things happen. You know, I studied how things happen. Like if a certain event was to happen, I would think, how did it start? Where did it originate? You know, I would look at people's behaviors in public, and I would look at their behaviors and stuff, and I would be like, why do they do that? Not in a like negative way, like why they don't do it like me. No, not like that. I was just studying like what made him say that, and my mind would go back and think things about why this person would say that, and I would try to keep and refrain from my ego telling me the answers. You know what I'm saying? So that way, if you're not using your ego, then you can kind of like get answers that your true higher self is telling you. So, and I had learned that at the time too. You know, your lower self and your higher self. The higher self is always about positive energy. And so I was just doing a lot of studying of my reality. How many of you study your reality? Speak up, let your voice be heard, and let me know if you be doing this. And so, you know, the more I studied, man, the more I just began to unearth things about reality. Now, what I did was I took what I unearthed about reality and I went back to the books again. I tried to apply what I had seen. You know what I mean? Like I tried to find and confirm what I had seen. I'm sorry. And so it just, you know, put me back in another learning frenzy of just learning again and learning and learning and learning. And I stopped again. You know what I mean? You got to take a break from reading sometimes. And I went back to my everyday, you know, analysis and studying of the world and everything around me and how it works, and just watching the universe do weird things. You know what I mean? You got to be an observer if you want to double your brain power, folks. And so I did that so often that I started to get used to what was going on. And what was going on was I was able to see how my right brain was working and how it was working alongside my left brain, and how, because I realized that reality is created by the brain. If you didn't have a brain in your head, in your skull, what would you be able to see? Nothing, right? So all of reality, I know this is going to blow your mind, but all of reality out here is just a part of your brain. It's just a part of your own brain, your brain. So again, if your brain was never there, what would you see with your own two eyes? Nothing. Think about that for a second. So I realized that at the time. And so one thing that I discovered was that it was working in both ways. It was working from the right brain, the reality was working from the right brain and the left brain. And so I would come across these situations, well, these coincidences called synchronicities, where I would think something and then it happened like right after I thought it. And it happened for so long. It was actually scaring me at that part of my journey. That's why I be telling y'all so much. That's just a sign to keep you aware that your thought life is creating your reality. That's why I always tell you life has number 11 is that. That's why I always tell all of you REM team members that, because I experienced this and I was studying this at the time, like an Einstein. You know what I mean? And so I noticed these synchronicities, where two events come together at the same time. One from your brain, you thinking about it, and then it just happened in reality, just like you was thinking about it. And I'm like, how does this happen? Then I got it. It came like a revelation. This is where whole brain thinking happens. This is where the right hemisphere meets with the left hemisphere perfectly. That means your brain is aligned with creation or reality creation. That means your thoughts in that moment align up to the reality that you were seeing before your very own eyes. Does that make any sense? I know that's a little too hard to fathom, but let me say that again. I realized that at that moment of synchronicities, your right brain had aligned with your left brain. And like I said, it reminded me that I am in control of creating my reality from my mind. And so when I learned that, folks, that's when I doubled my brain power. That's when I literally, unearthed everything about what I was wondering, how does life work and all this and that. That was really the start of my journey when I learned about the brain. And I hope this story resonated with you. I hope you get it. Folks, you got to learn how your mind thinks, because you are your very own worst enemy. You might not say that, but good gracious, you might not. I'm coming, y'all. I'm coming. You might not realize that right now, but it's the truth, folks. I ain't going to tell you no lie now. You creating everything that you see from your mind. Okay? So, yeah, this is how you double your brain power. If you learn about your mind, folks, and you learn how the right hemisphere works with the left hemisphere and how these both align up together and create your very own reality. And just run this video back if you have a hard time understanding it. I'm not going to edit this video. It's raw, uncut. I just want to take it back to the good old days when I used to have a cell phone, although I'm still on the camera. And I just want to be down raw, real, truthful, and rugged. You understand what I'm saying? So, Rim Team, cut me a break. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.